Hello, good evening, guys. So, how are you guys doing this Wednesday? I'm happy to report I had a very productive day. I think one of my things that I'm most proud of is I have, like a lot of the people in our group, altars all throughout the house that I have revamped. They needed spring cleaning, and so like my ancestor altar had that fall theme going on, so I redid that, and I posted pictures of the cute little one that I made in the kitchen that I'll be using. And it's that Oracle deck is so cool because each card gives a different ingredient. And so my challenge will be to use that ingredient in a dish that I make. And I'm going to be looking at like trying new recipes when I do that. Now, some of the cards are like catnip or these various things. So I'll probably look into branching out, maybe doing a little catnip plant so that the cats could all trip out, like they're not crazy enough as it is. Or even like your herbs. So I'm going to research maybe how to do a little herb garden. I've never grown one indoors though. So I think that'd be like a learning curve, but I'm always using herbs in my cooking, and I think it would be neat to be able to maintain my own. So that's one of my upcoming goals. I may end up converting the windowsill in my kitchen to like a little herb garden, or if it does better outside, when usually I plant after Mother's Day because that learning curve I've had in the past, because we still can get these cold freezes to where you really got to cover your plants, or because the cold's not good for them. So ever since in the past, I've gotten so happy about it being spring. I go out with my husband and I buy all this stuff and we plant it, and then we get these little cold spells in, and you really got to worry about keeping your plants warm and tending to them so that they don't die in that. And then let's see here. So tonight, we had pizza for supper, and then Maddie's been on top of us about, oh, I want Cold Stone. So as a family, we went there and we had Cold Stone. And so that summed it up. It was just nice to get some house cleaning done and get certain spaces in order. And honestly, I think that's the best way to approach cleaning your house. Is the hardest part's getting up and getting started. I think we all generally know that. But even when you get your mojo going, it's really important to take times out to just sit and rest and do it in chunks to where it's not this really unpleasant experience, if that makes sense, when you're trying to accomplish too much at one time. So, yeah, just like a 5 cents worth of an opinion as far as like what works for me. I know we're all different. So last night was a heavy night with our tarot teaching moment because we had reviewed the Three of Swords. And if you did not see that go live or the tarot teaching moment, feel free to find it either on our group page or on YouTube. All the tarot teaching moments are downloaded on YouTube for easy reference. So basically, in a nutshell, this is where a truth is made known from a deceit or betrayal. And then because that truth is made known, then somebody takes the time to experience the pain, work through it, begin the healing process, and move forward. This card's very heavy, even though the swords are all about logic and intuition's part of it when we internally reflect. But even though they're all about that logic, which is like our mind, and air with communication, emotion was very much part of that card. And so I won't bother going into that again. So feel free to look at that tarot teaching moment. Now, I am going to delve into a new card tonight, which would be the Four of Swords. And I want you to take a moment to take in the different colors that we're seeing. The main character in the card, what are they doing? Are the eyes open or closed? Look at the hands in the body position. Look at what's in the background, what's going on around them. And how does this card make you feel? Does it make you uncomfortable, or does it put you at ease? What are your first impressions of the card? You take a moment to look at that. So we're going to kind of delve into the nitty gritty. And then I do have Rachel Pollack's book, whereas I was looking up various things for this card, I wanted to make sure I read directly from the book because she words things, or at least worded things, so eloquently and so intelligently. Like, I love her writing, and I wanted to do it justice. So here we have the Roman numeral for 4. And it's a bit of a controversy if this is all one structure. So like it'd be a statue attached to, say, the top of this coffin, or if it's literally a person. And from what I read online and in Rachel's book and stuff, there's never been a for sure confirmation about either or, but it's interpreted both ways. Either way, it's representative of emerging out of that dark energy of the 3 of Swords. And now we're at that point where rest is needed. Okay. So what we're seeing here, whether it be a statue that's supposed to be representative, because again, we're talking about overall energy, or if this is actually a human being, we're seeing that the eyes are closed. Okay. The arms, note how they are bent from the elbow. Okay, so they're both up as in prayer. Okay, a very neutral, relaxed body posture. There's even a pillow there under the head, right, supporting the head. So it looks like this person, I would imagine it would be very hard to sleep that way. I mean, it's possible. Nothing's out of the realm of possibility. To have the arms turned at this angle and to be able to sleep would be a challenge, right? So this could be somebody in a very deep, rested, relaxed, meditative state, inwardly reflecting and taking the time to heal, right? So on the wall, we've got 3 downward pointing swords. So when we're looking at them and they're pointed downward, we're generally thinking of where these points are facing. We're thinking of earthly, okay? And like Tim Clark in our group mentioned last night when we were talking about the 3 of Swords, in his commentary, he mentioned how these can be seen as the, the mind, body, and spirit. So when we were going through the 3 of Swords, it's a toll on the mind, body, and spirit. That's what each of those represent. And so these could also be seen as the stressors. And this is why the central figure has essentially hung these things up on the wall. They're still present. They have not went anywhere as far as being resolved. But at this point in time, with the logical mind and knowing that there's a need to pull away and rest, our central figure is taking the time to step away, rest, reflect, maybe do a bit of grounding and recharging their energy, because we got to get all the way to the 10th card, right? In each suit, you got a total of 10 cards. Here we are only on the 4th one, and we already know in tarot that 5s mean conflict. So we cannot go, say, from the energy of the 3 of Swords to what we're about to go into with the 5 of Swords. So it's really good that our central character, our figure, is resting and recharging, okay? Now, there's a sword right down here that appears to be running alongside the side of the coffin, and that's representative of putting that sword down. Being that when this person is, say, relatively rested up, they've got their energy back, then they're going to pick up this new sword and start on this newer journey, as far as like, okay, you know, they're not going to just jump into the next thing, if that makes sense. Essentially, it's recharging themselves so that they continue to present themselves in the best light, communicate well, continue to have that logical thinking, Because, yeah, that last card was something else. It was a doozy of a card. And then in the corner here, we have the stained glass, which shows a mother figure, and it looks to be a child. And it looks like maybe a castle's in the background. And that's supposed to be like a very warm, comforting picture. So, like for me, when I see that, it gives me like Empress vibes. I think of motherly, tending, nurturing, loving vibes. And inside, it would appear that they are in maybe a church. Usually churches have stained glass walls. Now, another way of looking at this too is, so we have the central character, this figure, and it looks like they're praying. So they could be praying to whoever their faith is in. And with how we've got 3 swords, we could be talking from a Christian viewpoint. That could be the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We could also see this as like the triple goddess, okay, where we're looking at the moon and how the phases are always changing. The moon is never constant, always fluctuating, very symbolic of this journey. We've got the maiden mother crone. So just take a moment to think of what comes in 3s when it comes to somebody's faith. And that's what that could represent too, because this person is trying to look to a higher source of guidance after emerging from this betrayal, deceit, conflict, and having to rise again, essentially, and move forward the best that they can. So in terms of, say, relationships, let's start with love. This card could mean that people need to take a break. Like, they can totally love each other and all that good stuff even. It doesn't mean it's as bad as, say, the 3 of Swords with all that going on. But it could be that they're like, hey, you know, especially if they're introverted, they just want some alone time. Kind of like that song by Ariana Grande. And my husband hates that song. But it's called NASA. NASA. Me and you, boy. I'ma need space. That song, it used to play, like, it was about, like, pretty frequently when it was on the radio. Well, that's what it is. Somebody is needing space, okay, that alone time. With career, it's like somebody is at work, especially so much. They're not taking enough vacation days. They could be involved with so much at work where they actually like their job, but they're feeling burnt out. And it's really important to be very self-aware and to use those vacation days, you know, because if anything, you come back with a new perspective, recharged, ready to go back, hopefully, to your work. And yeah, and if you don't do that, then it's just not good. And we live in such a big, beautiful world. And we have to make our families a priority and ourselves. Like, we're usually last on the list, you know. It could also mean taking care of ourselves. So as Sharon Blue mentions in our group, well, not so much in our group, but she's told me before when she and I've talked about it, she calls this card the self-care card, and I do agree with that. It's a very good, simple explanation of this card. It's taking the time to do good by yourself. And so we talk about it a lot, especially in our book club, as we're trying to embrace the energy of these cards, right? Each week we have a card and we're embracing the energy. So we've been talking about the importance of learning how to meditate if you don't know how. Various forms. There's different ways you can do that. You know, taking the time to be in a quiet place and to kind of like de-escalate, which meditation helps with that, and to gain that orderly thought. And then if we have issues, we can certainly pull some cards if we're drawn to, journal about them. And then, like I always tell people, and I do this myself for my own issues. If there's within that narrative various issues, I'm going to do a loose outline about how I can address these things, because I honestly do not like to feel like I don't have the power over my own life. I understand, like with all of us, external things can happen, but I like knowing that I've got the locus of control over how I take care of myself, how I treat other people, how I respond to life circumstances, and tweaking that as needed, because none of us are perfect, and nor will we ever be. With finances, that can show the need where from the Three of Swords, when it was upright, we've got clarity that finances fell through, they weren't in a good place. Well, here, it's about just kind of realizing that you need to not spend and budget. Maybe pick up a couple hours after you've rested up, because again, you've went through a lot of emotional trauma. You don't want to take the time to not heal and rest, and you know what I'm saying, take that quiet time and instead jump into working overtime, heaven forbid make a mistake on the job, or have that extreme burnout that can lead to other issues. So it's making yourself a priority, even if your financial house isn't in order, right? Let's see here. So I'm going to go over some of the meanings I've jotted down here. So for descriptors, we have rest, quiet time, making some time to be alone and recharge, solid, logical, structured thinking, withdrawing or withdrawal, peacefulness, healing, sanctuary, recuperation, self-protection, rejuvenation. So for love, we've got withdrawing. It's taking a break in a relationship. Alone time. With career, it's a vacation. Mental health day. I mean, how many of us have called out of a job because we needed a mental health day? That wording is around for a reason. Our mental health is a very relevant thing. And for both love and career, we're talking self-care. So how are we taking care of ourselves? And, what does that look like to you? So like what works for me may not work for you. So I think it's very individualized. And with finances, this is somebody where money is a concern. And it's just one of those things that they're going to be aware of it. So it's taking the time to reflect and process and not be reactive about, I got to make all this money as soon as I can, but taking the time to rest and reflect and be like, okay, I'm in a better place mentally and even emotionally. And, and after giving yourself time to reflect and think, then you formulate a game plan. So for the symbols, so we had mentioned here these three swords. They're also synonymous for stressors. So these are a reminder of what was lost or impacted, which we have our physical, mental, and spiritual realms that were impacted by the Three of Swords, which was our previous card. It's also a reminder of suffering from a previous card, which we had talked about, hands in prayer. So this is somebody looking toward the divine for comfort, leaning into their faith. Now, with reversals, okay, you know that we generally talk about the opposite of the upright meaning. And this is another example about how not all reversals are bad. So with this scenario, it could go either way, though. So with love, after taking a break and alone time here to rest and reflect, then when it's in reverse, then somebody, after having that alone time, realizes that, hey, I miss my significant other, and they got that time into themselves to rest up and be introverted for a bit, and and that was good for the relationship. Or, hi honey, I see my husband's on here. Or on the other hand, if say the significant other did not honor the other person's request for that alone time, and then just kept bugging them and bugging them and bugging them, then what could happen is the other person could push them away because they would feel that that request was not honored, to just have a little bit of alone time to themselves. So see what I'm saying? It can go either way with this reversal. So you really got to look at the surrounding cards, and, if you're reading for yourself or others, to kind of determine which side someone's on with that, right? Now with career, it shows somebody, again, common theme is rested up when it's in reverse. They go back to work and they're energetic and they're ready. They've missed work. They're ready to get back to it. Now, let's say the opposite of this energy is, what if they couldn't get the time off work? What if that got turned down? This is not sustainable. We're looking at a pretty classic case of burnout, where somebody doesn't feel valued or respected, to where they probably won't stay at that job very long, because they haven't had that time away. So you see how it could go either way, though. Again, it depends on the situation. With finances, we're still looking at a place where that's actually improving. So somebody's actually, when it's in reversed, they've put a little bit into savings and they're kind of going up with that, if that makes sense. Things are progressing in a positive way. And that's from kind of processing it and formulating that game plan. So this is good. So this is like a positive increase in energy, right? Versus when it's upright, we're lacking on that and we need to recharge. So I'll go ahead and read off the descriptors for the reversals. So it's arousal from rest, which is a fancy way of just saying waking up, recovery, re-entering the world. This could be a release from isolation or burnout. It's just dependent on the circumstances. Also, let's see here. So for love, we're looking at either it's going to be a rejection or it could be a reignited passion. Career is either someone feeling refreshed or they're going to feel burnt out. Okay. And with finances, they're either improved, or that's another thing too. They could have, felt very overwhelmed by all that debt. So where things really haven't gotten much better on that front. It just depends. But generally speaking, when we're looking at it with it upright, we already know the financial house is not in order, right? But somebody needs to take care of themselves before they start worrying about making a ton of money for debt. So with how we're releasing that energy and we're getting energy back, that negativity has more or less left us, we've healed, then we could look at more of a positive progression. So that's a good thing, I think. And then I'm going to read a little bit from Rachel Pollack's book, which is Tarot Wisdom, Spiritual Teachings, and Deeper Meanings. Again, I love this book. It's a shame we recently lost her. She's like the mother of tarot, though. She was such an intelligent lady. So I'm going to find what I want to read to you guys, since I didn't highlight it here. So I'll start reading a little bit here of different things. So she says, there is a temptation here to bring together the Picatrix meaning with the writer image and think of the knight in the picture as sleeping off a hangover. But is he just resting? To some he looks dead, to others it seems not a person at all, but an effigy on top of a stone coffin. I've said that structure is the theme of 4 in the writer, but admittedly here it's a bit strained. Air resists structure, as anyone knows who has tried to keep the mind focused on a single subject. So structure comes only through a withdrawal from stimulus. The writer image often seems like a fairy tale scene to me, a knight under a spell who can only be awakened by the right person. In the Grail stories, the Fisher King lies in a kind of coma until the Grail can heal him. Percival can do so simply by asking what is going on when he sees the Grail maidens carrying the sacred objects. Speech would have activated the healing power. Instead, he follows politeness rather than instinct, and the king remains asleep. The wholeness and stability of Tetrad would suggest we look at the Four of Swords as solid, structured thinking, which I think is important to bring up. With fours in tarot, we say stable like a table because a table generally has four legs. So think of stable like a table. Okay. Producing results in the physical world. If swords are conflict, the four might contain the issues that cause problems, bringing stability and so perhaps rest. And let's see here. So the Four of Air can refer to orderly, logical thinking. And yeah. And some of her descriptors that she has would be rest, withdrawal, peacefulness, logical structured thinking, healing. Okay. Mercy and generosity replaces anger. Allowing what we want to come to us instead of chasing after it. And then she's saying in reverse, we've got intuitive thinking rather than logic. Because again, in swords, they do value their logic quite a bit. You know. So I think that sums us up as far as discussing this. And so now I'm going to go over the cards as a comparison. Let's see here. So I really love this one. This is one of my favorites. So here we see a young lady, and you see how she is kind of like in the fetal position. And she's in her little home. So it's like a nice little nest. And her heart is on the mend. So it's like all these little thorny elements that are poking through there. It's almost like she's kind of like mending her heart slowly but surely. You know, that could also be representative of some of those swords that were hanging on the wall. The problems aren't going anywhere, but they don't need to be solved today. It's more important that she turn inward, rest, reflect, think, versus try to solve all the problems in one day and not be in a good place, you know. And just look how peaceful that is. Like, that's some good sleep. Like, napping is one of my favorite things to do, you know. And I love how the nest takes up most of that picture, too. And I see Cassandra's on here. Hi, welcome. And, I think, see, Facebook is so weird. I think I briefly saw Persephone on, too, but I don't know if she's still here or not. So, this one is funny. I'm a huge fan of MJ Cullinane, if you guys can't tell. I've got a lot of her decks, especially, of course, the crow-themed one, right? Hi, Seraphine. So, I actually watched a YouTube video where the actual author of the Crow Tarot was talking about this card in the confusion. So I'd say look her up on YouTube if you want to watch it about the Four of Swords, because it did make me chuckle, you know, watching it. So one of the things she said is that a lot of people asked her if this crow is dead or if it's alive, since birds don't generally lay on their back like that unless they're dead. And I love how she brought up in that video that crows are little tricksters. And they're extremely smart, like we all know, right? So this little guy has his friends or family that could be his significant other and his little baby outside, his family. Well, see, the thing is, they're not going anywhere, okay? And yeah, there's some things going on that need to be addressed, like we were talking about, especially from that Three of Swords with the physical, mental, spiritual, right? But we don't have to solve all those today. So our little friend is leaving those on the wall, okay? His family or friends, they're cool, okay? They're hanging out outside and screen. He's tricking them, though. He's laying on his back. I'm sure they don't know what to think about this, but it looks like they're distracted anyway. So he's taking this time to maybe close his eyes and rest, block out the rest of the world, and turn internally for a bit. You know, I love how his little feet are up in the air, though. It is so cute, right? Even his little eyes are closed. And then we still have this sword underneath here. And when he's ready, you know, he'll pick up that little sword and fly off to rejoin, you know, the other little guys in his murder. But for right now, he doesn't want to do all that, you know. So I thought that was funny. It's cute. Now with this one, we see the 4 swords, and they are kind of like put off, you know, to the side, and then somebody's helmet, you know, little birds resting on that. We've got a little bird hanging out here, and it's nice. It just goes to show that somebody doesn't need, you know, their swords. They don't have it in them anyway to have more conflict after the 3 of Swords. They're going to go off and do something else with their day that doesn't involve all this conflict and solving problems and communication. You know, that way they're stronger for another day. And I love the line work and the shading on that. Isn't that so pretty? You know, I love that card. And then, you know, the thing is when I got the Hush Tarot, I had somebody do a reading for me, and I really loved the art, and I gravitated toward it. I feel like I give it such a hard time on these go lives because most of the cards, it turns out they don't resonate with me, but I love the art in them. This one, though, is actually pretty spot on for the 4 of Swords. So I'm glad that we have a victory with this Hush Tarot. So here we have the 3 swords in the background, and we have the central character. The eyes are closed, and it looks like she's sleeping. You know, she's just resting, kind of like putting her head down. And just looking at her body language there, I don't know how in the world she's comfortable doing that. The way this goes across reminds me of like a desk, you know? But again, we don't see anything supporting that sword in the picture. Just looking at her body, she must be so exhausted to rest in that way, you know? And then here in the background, you have those 3 other swords, though. So, yeah. I thought that was pretty cool, though. It's about time. The Hush Tarot needed a victory, you know. So, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, of course, please let me know. I will be working at the Grand Slam tomorrow night with Kyle and Kathy. So if you're not in the mood to do supper and you want to like just hang out as far as saying hi, getting some good food, maybe think about doing karaoke, come by and see us. We'll be there between 5 and 10. And I love Kyle and Kathy. They're so fun to work with. So whoever you gravitate toward, you're in good hands with all 3 of us. We take really good care of the people we read for. And let's see. So what I'll do is our next go live will be about the 5 of Swords. So I will post that in the afternoon, or actually in the morning. I'll go ahead and knock it out. I'll post that, and I'll also do maybe our tarot card of the day. I'll see what resounds with me, and I'll post something for our group. And then I'm always open about continuing to improve our group because I love the people we have in it. So if you want to do anything in our group that maybe I haven't thought of, but it's along the theme of tarot, oracle, divinatory, I think that's a good thing. The only thing I ask is, I mean, of course, be yourself, but just keep in mind, we've got people of all faiths in our group. So just kind of like, just keep your audience in mind. We're all from different walks of life is all. And I think that's the gist of it. I can't think of anything else. So I love you guys. I hope you have a restful evening and that you get some time in to be intuitive and meditate and chillax a bit. And I will see you tomorrow. Good night.